The room Timmy and Awele called home was barely 10 square meters. The zinc roof leaked whenever it rained, and the walls were stained with years of sweat, smoke, and silent prayers. A rickety fan in the corner struggled to rotate, making more noise than wind. Their mattress lay directly on the floor, with two buckets beside it, one for fetching water, the other to catch drips from the ceiling. Life was tough, almost unbearable. Each morning, Timmy would leave before dawn with a shovel slung over his shoulder. He worked at construction sites, pushing wheelbarrows and carrying heavy blocks under the blazing sun. By evening, his shirt would be drenched in sweat and stained with cement, but he never came home empty-handed. Not if he could help it. Even if it was just a few slices of yam or a sachet of gari, it was something. Awele, his wife, was no stranger to hardship. She sold vegetables by the roadside, standing under an umbrella that had more patches than fabric. With a small plastic table, a cracked basin, and a faded apron around her waist, she hawked tomatoes, onions, and pepper to passers-by. The money was barely enough to cover dinner, but she never complained. She would always say to Timmy, "My love, don't worry. God see all your efforts and hard work. I believe in you, and I know that one day you will make me proud. God will definitely bless your hard work someday, just very soon." Timmy would smile and say, "My angel, the queen of my youth, thank you for standing by me. I promise you that when things get better, I will buy you a luxury car. I will definitely reward you for all your kindness and unwavering love to me. Thank you, my queen." Their love was strong and stronger even though there were no money. This is the perfect definition of true love. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Timmy came home limping. A block had fallen on his foot. He winced as he stepped inside. "My love!" Awele dropped the plate she was washing and rushed to him. "What happened?" "It's nothing," he said, trying to hide the pain. "Just a small accident." She knelt before him, untying his boot and peeling off his soaked sock. His big toe was swollen and turning purple. "This is not small, Timmy. You need to rest." "Rest doesn't bring money," he replied. "If I don't go tomorrow, someone else will take my place." She wiped his foot with a warm cloth and gently massaged it with balm, whispering prayers under her breath. "God will reward you," she said softly. "One day this suffering will end. We will laugh, you'll see." Later that night, after sharing a small plate of rice without meat, they lay on their thin mattress. The ceiling fan had stopped working, and mosquitoes sang a cruel lullaby. Timmy stared at the ceiling, his hand resting on Awele's belly. She had just told him she was pregnant that week. "Do you think we're ready for a child? I am poor. I barely afford 3 square meals for just you and I. How are we going to raise a baby now? Do you think we can do this?" he asked. She turned to him with a smile. "No one is ever really ready, but love makes room. Children are gifts from God, and I believe when this baby comes, God will not forsake us. He will provide and make a way for us where there is no way. Don't be scared, my king. We'll manage." He chuckled, a dry, weary sound. "We've been managing since we met." "Yes," she said, placing his hand fully on her stomach. "But this time, we're managing for 3. The room was dark, hot, and noisy, but in that moment, they held on to each other like they were the richest people on earth. Outside, neighbors quarreled, babies cried, and generators roared. But inside there was peace, a fragile, sacred peace that only two struggling souls in love could know. They made plans that night, simple plans. Timmy would save to buy a motorcycle for Kiki riding. Awole would expand her business and maybe start frying puff puff in the mornings. They dreamed of moving into a self-contained apartment, maybe even owning a fridge. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep hope alive. And so, with swollen feet and heavy hearts, they slept, bound by faith, poverty, and an undying love that hadn't yet been tested by fortune. Little did they know life was about to change forever. It started like a joke. Timmy had gone to buy cement at a warehouse when he overheard two engineers talking. A foreign construction company, Eastern Bridges Limited, was expanding into the city and needed new local staff, drivers, site workers, assistants, even office cleaners. The pay? Double what most local companies offered. He asked for directions and showed up the next morning in his only neat shirt and faded trousers. He stood in line under the morning sun with over 200 other desperate men. He didn't think he stood a chance. When his turn came, he introduced himself in shaky English. "I am hardworking, sir. I dey push wheelbarrow, lay blocks, do anything." The white supervisor nodded. "Come back tomorrow. You'll start as an assistant storekeeper." Just like that, everything changed. That night, Timmy rushed home and lifted Awele into his arms, spinning her around despite her growing belly. "What is it?" she asked, startled. "I got the job," he cried. "A real job. Company work." Awele broke into tears. She dropped to her knees and lifted her hands in praise. "Jehovah, thank you, thank you." Within the first month, Timmy's salary was more than he had earned in 6 months of labor. He bought new clothes. They stopped borrowing to eat. He even took Awele to a restaurant for the first time in their lives. She wore her best wrapper and tied her headscarf in a beautiful knot. They laughed over fried rice and chicken like teenagers in love. By the third month, they moved out of the slum. Their new apartment had tiled floors, a kitchen, and a small sitting room with a used sofa. Awele decorated it with love, framed Bible verses, lace curtains, and plastic flowers. But with the new life came new temptations. At work, Timmy met colleagues who mocked him for being too local. One of them, Emeka, had lived in Dubai and wore gold chains. "Guy, this your wife? Should they follow you enter this new level?" Emeka asked one evening after work. Timmy smiled proudly. "She's been with me since the beginning." Emeka scoffed. "No be who suffer with you go enjoy with you all. Sometimes you need to upgrade to match your new level." Those words stayed in Timmy's head. Then came Sonia. She worked in the admin unit, light-skinned, curvy, always dressed in fancy gowns with bold red lipstick. She spoke English with a city accent and called everyone darling and sweetheart. One day, she walked up to Timmy. "You're the new big boy around here," she said, flashing a smile that made his heart skip. "I like your hustle." Timmy chuckled, scratching his head. "Ah, no big boy, oh. I'm just managing." Sonia tilted her head and bit her lips slightly. "Maybe we should hang out sometime, unless your village wife won't like it." That night, as Awele massaged his legs and told him how baby kicked twice that day, his mind drifted, not to the child, but to Sonia's perfume and her city girl laugh. Days turned to weeks. Timmy started working late. Awele noticed the change. He became distant, distracted. He stopped eating her food. He spent more time on his phone. His touch became rare. His laughter cold. One evening, he came home wearing a designer shirt she had never seen before. "Where did you get this?" she asked, folding laundry. "A colleague gave it to me," he muttered. The shirt smelled of Sonia's perfume. Later that night, Awele waited until he was asleep. She placed her hand on her belly and whispered, "Father, if I've lost him, if the world is taking him from me, please fight for me. Fight for my home." Outside, the wind howled. Inside, a storm had just begun to form in her marriage. The more Timmy's income grew, the more distant he became. At first, it was subtle. He started correcting Awele's pronunciation. Then he stopped attending church with her. He said he was tired or had meetings on Sundays. When she asked him to take baby items to the hospital for her prenatal visits, he often forgot or claimed he was too busy. But the truth was simple. Timmy had stepped into a new world, one that made him ashamed of his roots. His new friends, mostly colleagues who wore foreign perfumes and gold watches, mocked the old life he was still tied to. They laughed at men who allowed local women to drag them backward. They called women like Awele village projects. "You see," Emeka told him over bowls of beer one night, "once money enters your life, you must upgrade. Life is about class. You don't carry old wine into new bottles. That's a waste." Those words hardened something in Timmy. He started seeing Awele's devotion as desperation. Her prayers began to irritate him. Her rappers felt embarrassing. Her humility now looked like weakness. Meanwhile, Sonia turned up the charm. She started sending him texts during office hours. "Baby boy, I saw your smile this morning. Dangerous. You make this office bearable. Thinking of you. Dinner tonight." One Friday evening, after an office hangout, she leaned close and whispered, "Come upstairs with me. Let's talk. Just talk." He followed. That night, Timmy crossed a line, and once crossed, there was no going back. He came home past midnight, smelling of Sonia's perfume and expensive whiskey. Awele was sitting on the floor, back resting against the wall, eyes swollen from crying. "I called you 16 times, Timmy," she said softly. "I was worried. I thought maybe—" "I'm not a child," he snapped, tossing his phone on the table. "Must you call me like a prison warden?" She stood up slowly, trying not to raise her voice. "I made food. It's cold now, but I can warm it. I'm not hungry," he balked, "and stop treating me like I'm still poor." Those words sliced through her like a blade. He looked around the room they had made together, the Bible verses on the wall, the plastic flowers, the framed photo from their restaurant date. And suddenly, it all felt beneath him. A few days later, Sonia started sleeping over at his office flat. Timmy told Awele he needed space for serious office work. She didn't argue. She simply nodded, wiped her tears, and carried her swollen feet to bed. The neighbors began to notice. Awele walked alone to the clinic. She carried heavy buckets of water without help. She saw vegetables less frequently as the pregnancy wore her down. One evening, Mama Bisi, the woman next door, came to her. "My daughter, no vexo, but is your husband okay? These days he passes without greeting, like someone running from home." Awele smiled, a sad, thin smile. "He's just overwhelmed. The promotion at work, the new responsibilities." But deep down, Her heart was breaking. She began to pray more, not just for Timmy to return, but for strength to face whatever was coming. Then came the final blow. It was a rainy Tuesday. Awele had just returned from the hospital, soaked to the bone, clutching a small paper bag of antenatal vitamins. The doctor had warned her again, "You need rest, madam. Stress can harm the baby." But rest was a luxury she couldn't afford. Timmy no longer gave her money. She had been managing on the little she made from selling leftover vegetables. She had used her last cash to pay for the checkup. As she dried herself off and changed into a wrapper, thunder rumbled in the distance. She stirred the pot of rice and beans she had cooked with the last handfuls of grain in the house. Her stomach growled, but she waited for Timmy to eat first, as always. By 9 p.m. he returned. He came in wearing designer jeans, a new shirt, and a leather wristwatch she didn't recognize. His hair was freshly trimmed, his face clean-shaven. He looked like a man preparing for something permanent. "Timmy, you're back," she said, rushing to take his bag. "Your food is ready. Keep it," he said, his voice clipped. "I won't be eating." She froze. "Is everything okay?" He exhaled deeply, avoiding her gaze. "Awele, let's not drag this out. I came to tell you something important." Her hands trembled as she set the plate down. "I've made up my mind," he continued. "I can't do this anymore. We're too different now. I've outgrown this life, this marriage." Awele blinked rapidly. What? What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want a divorce." The words hit her like a slap. She staggered a bit, holding her belly. "Timmy, I don't understand. I've stood by you. You don't get it," he snapped. "I'm a big man now. I can't keep coming home to a woman who ties wrapper and sells vegetables on the roadside. You don't fit into my world anymore. I'm tired of pretending." Her eyes welled up. "I gave you my youth, Timmy. My body, my strength. I stood in rain and sun to feed us. I starved so you could eat. I prayed when everyone mocked you. And now that you have small money, I'm not good enough." He turned toward the door. "Don't make this dramatic. I've already moved out." "Where will I go?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "Where will I raise our child?" He paused, hand on the doorknob, but didn't look back. "That's your business." With that, he walked out into the rain, leaving her in silence. Awele stood in the center of the room, alone, cold and trembling. Her hands dropped to her belly as tears poured freely down her face. The food on the table grew cold. The storm outside raged on. And in that moment, Awele realized that the man she had built a life with, dreamed with, suffered with, was no longer hers. He had chosen the world. She was just a chapter he closed on his way up. But the story was not yet. Timmy didn't just leave Owl. He raised her. In his new apartment, a sleek furnished one-bedroom in an upscale estate, there was no trace of the woman who had stood by him. No framed wedding photo, no worn-out Bible with underlined verses, no reminder of the nights he wept on her lap or the morning she handed him his boots with a smile. Now there was only Sonia. She came with perfume that lingered in the curtains, designer handbags, and selfies posted with captions like "Date night with the CEO of my heart." Her laughter filled the room, and her demands filled his wallet. At first, Timmy was intoxicated. Everything about Sonia was loud and exciting. Her voice, her nails, her makeup, her lifestyle. She called him baby and praised him for being different from those broke office boys. She introduced him to her friends, most of them just like her, fine, flashy, and fake. Timmy showered her with gifts, Wigs worth thousands, perfumes from abroad, an iPhone upgrade every few months. He sponsored her salon visits and took her to lounges and rooftops where meals cost more than Awel used to earn in a week. On Instagram, they were couple goals, but beneath the glitz, a slow rot had begun. One afternoon, while sipping champagne in a bar with Sonia and her friends, Timmy scrolled past a Facebook post from someone in the old neighborhood. Congratulations to Sister Awele on her safe delivery. A bouncing baby girl. God is faithful. He paused for a brief moment, something twisted in his chest. Awele had given birth alone, without him. Baby, what's wrong? Sonia asked, chewing on a chicken wing. He locked his phone. Nothing. And just like that, he drank the guilt away. As weeks passed, Sonia's true colors began to show. She complained constantly about his car, his clothes, his cologne. Why can't you dress like Desmond, she'd say. He's not even as fine as you, but he looks rich. When Timmy brought home Chinese takeout one night, Sonia wrinkled her nose. I thought we'd be going to La Vita tonight. We just went there 3 nights ago, he replied. So don't act broke. That night, as she slept beside him, snoring softly in silk nightwear he had bought, he stared at the ceiling, wondering when the thrill had started to feel like a trap. Meanwhile, back in the small room he had abandoned, Awele sang lullabies to their daughter with cracked lips and empty pockets. Her body still bore the marks of childbirth. Her heart still held prayers for the man who left her. She didn't curse him. She simply whispered, Lord, fight for me. And life was listening. It started with a whisper in the office corridors. The foreign partners of Eastern Bridges Limited were pulling out. Contracts were being frozen. Staff would be laid off soon. Timmy didn't worry at first. After all, he was one of the trusted hands, or so he thought. He wore sharp suits, managed people, and attended strategy meetings. He believed his position was secure. But reality hit on a Tuesday morning when the HR manager handed him a brown envelope. This is your final paycheck, Mr. Timmy. The company regrets the downsizing. It's not personal. He stood there, stunned. What do you mean, final paycheck? I'm sorry, the woman said quietly. We're letting you go. That evening, Timmy didn't tell Sonia. Instead, he picked her up in a boat ride and took her to a fancy restaurant, paid for, with part of his severance money. He couldn't bear to see her frown or hear her mock him. So he lied. I've been promoted, he said. New role, more work from home. Sonia smiled, clinking her wine glass against his. Finally, now you can upgrade that old car and get me the Chanel bag I've been eyeing. Timmy laughed, but his stomach turned. He started borrowing to maintain the lifestyle. Small loans here and there, subtle lies to old friends. My account is having issues, or money is tied up in an investment. No one suspected anything. Yet, he stopped sending money to Awele altogether. When she tried calling, he ignored her. She sent a text, even if you've moved on, Timmy, remember your daughter. She deserves diapers, milk, something, please. He read it and deleted it, but the cracks were growing. Sonia began to notice. Baby, why haven't we been to Zanzibar yet? You promised. Soon, Timmy said. Why don't we go out anymore? You're always moody. I'm tired. You're changing, Timmy. Don't turn into a stingy man. One evening, she came home and found that the Wi-Fi had been disconnected. She was furious. What kind of embarrassment is this? You can't even pay for Wi-Fi. I'm handling it, he snapped. She hissed and stormed out of the apartment, slamming the door so hard the frame mirror by the hallway fell and cracked. Still, he didn't tell her the truth. He started selling his things one by one. First the TV, then the microwave, then his second phone. Eventually, the landlord came knocking. Oga, abeg, 3 months no be joke. I go give you one more week. One morning, Sonia came back from a sleepover at her friend's place and saw her clothes packed in nylon bags. What's this? She shouted. Timmy sat on the floor, head in his hands. I can't pay rent. I've lost everything. There was silence, then laughter, sharp, mocking laughter. Wait, you mean to tell me you've been broke all this while? You've been forming big boy with nothing in your account? Timmy nodded slowly. Sonia adjusted her handbag, picked up her nylon bags and said, I can't suffer with you, abeg. I'm not your wife. She walked out without a backward glance. And just like that, she was gone like smoke from a burnt offering. Timmy sat alone in the empty apartment, the echo of her footsteps still ringing in his ears. Outside, the city moved on. Inside, his world had collapsed. He was alone, truly, completely, painfully alone. The day Sonia walked out, something inside Timmy shattered. He wouldn't believe the woman he gave everything would leave him just like that. He loved Sonia so much, but now Sonia was gone. At first, he tried to be strong. He told himself he would bounce back. He'd find another job, another woman, another way up. But weeks passed, then months, and life, as if taking revenge, refused to show him mercy. He moved into a friend's spare room, bare mattress on the floor, no ceiling fan, no comfort. But even that friend eventually asked him to leave when the bills piled up. Soon, Timmy was on the street. No job, no friends, no woman, no plan. He started going to construction sites again, hoping to be hired as a laborer. But this time, the supervisors were younger men who looked at him with pity. Oga, we no get space. You fit come tomorrow. He stopped going after a while. The same hands that once held keys to an air-conditioned apartment were now stretched out to strangers for coins. He begged quietly, ashamed, always looking over his shoulder in case someone recognized him. One night, hungry and tired, he wandered into the old neighborhood, the same slum he once escaped from. He saw the leaking zinc roofs, the broken gutters, the children running barefoot in the mud. It used to feel like hell. Now it felt like home. He sat under the familiar mango tree where he and Awele once dreamed of a better life. He remembered everything. How she used to sit on that very spot, wrapping groundnut in tiny paper sheets. How she'd wipe his sweat and say, one day we'll laugh at all this. Instead, he had laughed at her, and now the joke was on him. He slept on a wooden bench that night, cold, exposed, and hungry. He thought about his daughter, the one he hadn't even named, hadn't held, hadn't sent money for. He thought about Awele, the woman he abandoned in her weakest moment, the one who prayed instead of cursed him. Timmy wept. Not just for what he lost, but for the man he had become. The next morning, with swollen eyes and empty pockets, he knew there was only one place left to go, not because he had options, but because he had nothing else. It was time to go home. Timmy's descent wasn't sudden. It was slow, cruel, and humiliating. After Sonia left and the rent expired, he tried to pick himself up. He printed a few copies of his CV, dressed in an old shirt, and walked the streets for hours under the sun, begging for work. He approached construction sites, offices, roadside stores, anywhere someone might need help. No one did. Come back next week. Who call you? Oga, we no need person like you here. Each rejection chipped away at what little pride he had left. He tried selling second-hand belts and wallets on the roadside. It worked for 2 days. Then area boys chased him away for not settling them. His capital, barely 5,000 naira, was gone. One afternoon, exhausted and hungry, he approached a woman he once flirted with at Sonia's birthday party. She had laughed at his jokes back then, even touched his chest playfully. "Hey, it's me, Timmy. Remember me?" he said with a smile that begged for warmth. She looked him over. Dusty slippers, faded jeans, sunken cheeks, and clutched her handbag tighter. "You're looking different," she said slowly. "Yeah, things are just rough. I was wondering if we could talk over lunch. I could use some company." She laughed loud and mocking. "Lunch? You know, even get money for chewing gum." She walked away. Another day, he ran into his old neighbor, Chuka. They used to drink cheap beer together when the money flowed. "Ha, Timmy, long time," Chuka said, then added with a smirk, "Sonia still day? Happy she don't fly?" Timmy tried to smile. Life just turned upside down. "I need a small place to crash for a few days." Chuka shook his head. "My brother, so we dey manage now. My house no even get space. Try somewhere else." Somewhere else? He tried, but the streets offered only cold concrete, mosquito bites, and growling stomachs. Weeks passed. Timmy's skin darkened under the sun. He slept under a bridge by the market, cold beside other nameless men. They called him Pastor because he sometimes muttered prayers in his sleep. One night it rained. He shivered beneath a torn nylon sheet, soaked and coughing. His chest burned with fever, his stomach ached with emptiness, and then he heard a sound. A little girl, no older than 2, ran across the sidewalk into the arms of her father. "Daddy," she squealed. The man lifted her, kissed her cheek, and twirled her around. The girl giggled. Timmy watched, tears stinging his eyes. "That could have been my daughter. No, that should have been my daughter." Memories flooded his mind. Awele tying his shoelaces on his first day at work. Awele skipping meals to make sure he ate. Awele massaging his bruised feet. Awele holding her belly, smiling through the pain. And now she was somewhere out there, raising his child alone, still abandoned. He buried his face in his palms and sobbed loud and broken. The next morning, Timmy begged for money outside a pharmacy. A car pulled up beside him. From the back seat stepped Mr. Paul, his former office supervisor. They locked eyes. "Timmy," the man said in shock, "is this you?" Timmy couldn't speak. He wanted to run, to hide, to disappear, but he just stood there, skin pale, lips dry, a shadow of the man he once was. Mr. Paul looked at him with a mixture of pity and disbelief. "You used to be so sharp. What happened?" Timmy looked away. "Life?" The man gave him 1,000 naira, shook his head, and drove off. That 1,000 naira saved him that day. He bought a loaf of bread, sat by a gutter, and ate slowly, crying between bites. Then he made a decision. He went to a public restroom, scrubbed his body with a bar of soap someone had left behind, combed his hair with his fingers, and stared at his reflection in the mirror. His face was gaunt, his eyes sunken. His once bright future now lay in ashes. But he had one thing left, a chance to say sorry. The walk to Awele's house was long. He had asked a mutual friend where she stayed now. She had moved to a modest single room in a compound near a small church. Timmy's legs wobbled as he walked the dusty road. Sweat soaked his shirt. Each step felt heavier than the last. He paused at the gate. He could hear a baby laughing inside. His heart pounded. He raised his hand to knock, then dropped it. He paced. What if she slammed the door? What if she cursed him? What if she had moved on? He turned to leave. Then he heard her voice singing softly. It stopped him cold. That voice, the same voice that used to lull him to sleep when the world was unkind. He turned back trembling and knocked. The door opened slowly, and there she was, Awele, her hair tied in a scarf, her eyes tired but peaceful. A child stood beside her, clutching her wrapper. Their daughter. Timmy dropped to his knees. I have no right to ask for anything, he said, voice shaking. But I've come to say sorry. I lost everything. Sonia left. The money is gone. I've been on the street. I've begged. I've starved. And the only name that never left my heart was yours. He bowed his head. I wronged you. I disgraced you. I abandoned you. But Awele, please, if not for me, then for our daughter, just let me be near her. Let her know her father isn't dead. A long silence followed. Awele stared at him, her eyes filled with tears. She didn't speak. She stepped aside. And in that gesture, Timmy wept harder, not because he had been forgiven, but because grace had spoken where judgment was expected. And for the first time in a long time, he felt human again.